I motion to approve the agenda.
Ken, I'd like to table something on the agenda.
Okay.
Can I, move it to our next meeting? That would be the approvals for 3211 and 3211P.
Okay. Does the original agree with that?
Yes, I'll motion now to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I second it.
Have first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We will go on to student representative report.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back. But before I begin, I'd like to apologize to everyone for being absent for about 2 months. There's been some things going on within my life between the span of June and May, in the months I wasn't present, so I apologize on behalf of that. But I'm glad to be back. As for my student representative report, Miles won't be attending today because he has a leadership camp right now. But I want to begin discussing an idea with Dr. Perez and Miles on community night, if anyone remembers that. I'm thinking of possibly remaking that idea, but turn it into a sort of welcome back to the year orientation for everyone, including the school board, so that way anyone in the community is free to ask questions to the school board or any plans we might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Board member discussion. Is there a legislative report?
The only thing I have to update for the legislative report is that next week we'll be having a sit down with Representative Schmick and Representative Ibarra. We're going to have an opportunity to talk to them about how things are going in our school and in the whole entire state. Just an opportunity for us to talk to our representatives about that and see what can be done and what the state of things are.
Where would that be at?
That'll be here in the district office.
Well,
Date and time?
Yes, it is the 30th, July 30th at noon. I'll double check the time.
Pete, will that be held here in the board meeting, or where would that be?
Yeah, excuse me. Typically in the past, yes, we've held them here in the board meeting, in the boardroom.
July 30th at 2:30.
Could I, Marisa, could I ask you to put that on a deal to all of us? Thank you.
Okay, is there any further board member discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will go to required approvals.
I motion to approve the required approvals.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. Then, required approvals for accounts payable warrants 2.
I motion to approve the required approvals for accounts payable 2.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. We will go on to superintendent informational items.
Yeah, just a couple items on there this afternoon. Certainly the financial reports, which are a consistent presence. But we have an opportunity to share with you. We've invited Amy Paris here today to talk to you a little bit about our digital learning program. And this is some new work for Othello, so I want you to be aware of that. Certainly during the pandemic, a number of school districts across the state of Washington and across the country, we had to pivot and create online options. And what the data tells us is that a number of those families have decided that's a good model for them. And so there are schools and communities all across the country who have lost students. And we have had that experience here in Othello, folks looking for an online model. The challenge for a place like Othello is you enroll in this online program and you probably don't get an opportunity to ever sit down and meet with someone to get some additional support, to get some counseling. And so we've designed a model that will allow us to do some of that and recapture, we believe, some of those families who have chosen this online idea. So Amy's here to talk with you a little bit about that work.
Well, everything you just said is what I was going to say, Pete. So my work here is done.
Thank you.
He mentioned that some of the reasons we've chosen to research this were because a lot of schools around us were doing it. We have somewhere between 40 and 50 families every year who opt out of our direct instruction programs and go to online platforms and other places. So besides obviously keeping the FTE for those students and keeping them in town, we feel like anecdotally we have some stories like anxiety issues. COVID created a lot of new situations, and some kids really thrived in that remote environment. And I think we were anxious to get them back in our classrooms, but we have this unmet need now. And so we had a team of people the last 6 months or so really look around and see what else is out there, talk to our own families, see how people feel, and we developed this program. So what you have in front of you is kind of an FAQ. I thought this would be a great place to start. These are the big questions that everyone's asking, that we were asking ourselves when we started this research, and the things that people are probably going to ask when we go a little bit more public with this. A couple of things to remember. We are not, we don't want this to be big. We just want this to be an option for a certain population of our kids and our families. So if you look at, if you've had a chance to really review this, but I want to highlight 2 particular questions here. Number 2, how do you qualify? You know, are you the right type of a student or a family member or person to do this program? So what we put together were some things, some decisions we had to.
Just as it gets going, not letting anybody
Yeah.
else out, or what was the?
Oh, no. So I'll jump ahead. We are contacting all those families.
Okay.
So on a yearly basis, families who choose to opt out and go to Connell or go anywhere, including online programs, they have to re-up an application every year. So in the past, we've just kind of kept letting them go, kept, letting them out. So this time we have something to offer. So we're just really taking the opportunity to say, we have something new. Like we've designed a program that we think you might be interested in. We're not trying to pressure those families, but we are contacting them individually to offer this and answer questions. That's where we're starting. But outside of this, we just know that students are going to surface, people are going to hear about it, come and ask questions, and then we'll jump to some of this criteria. Like, we are looking for extenuating circumstances. We're not looking for another big, giant program. So if there are things that make coming to the traditional middle school OHS or DOHS virtually impossible for you, maybe it's work responsibilities. We have a lot of parenting teenagers. Mental health, physical health ailments that preclude them from coming to school. Hardships for attendance is another one we see a lot. Transportation issues, or they have supervision of siblings. So those are kind of the things we've heard about already. So when those guys come now and we problem solve through these issues, maybe now this is where they're going to land. A few other really important things. We're looking for the support of parents and guardians for these guys, because there's a lot of independent work that's going to have to happen. And the ALE, the Alternative Learning Education rules that we're falling under, say 27 to 28 hours per week on coursework. So while they're working remotely at their own pace, we're still tracking the hours that they need to put in so that they can stay on track. So they're clearly going to need guidance from somebody, at home, helping them, making sure they have devices and Wi-Fi and all the things. And then finally, also, we have to make sure that the students are academically appropriate for this. Not all kids would be able to learn online at a 7th grade level, a 9th grade level, or whatever. So those are some of the things we're anticipating. And finally, I guess I want to point out number 5, and then I'll take any questions you have. We kind of want this to be a temporary thing. Our goal is always going to be come back to the traditional school. We think our direct instruction programs and all of the support services we have in person are the best. That's our tier 1. That's what we work on to be strong for everyone. So if there's a time in your life where this is a temporary thing to get you through 1 or 2 grading periods or even a school year, we're always going to keep in touch with them to make sure that we know what's going on, and ultimately the goal is them to like reacclimate in the traditional schools and go back to their graduation path. So currently, last thing I'll say is that we do need to recover about 20 of those families financially to make this fly now, to be able to kind of pay for it, pay for the certified instructor that we're looking for. Otherwise, we're really ready to go, and when the need surfaces, we'll be ready. So the timeline's still a little bit iffy.
So.
Okay.
You said 20, you need 20 students to apply. Do you think that will be hard to get, or will
I
that be a pretty
don't.
easy number?
I think, so we're starting with those families that we already know are engaged in other online programs. And what we're learning so far is if they've been inside of Washington or at WAVA, those are kind of the most popular online schools around the state. If they've been there more than a couple of years and been successful, they're pretty engaged in those programs. They already have a graduation plan. So we're not gonna, pressure them or anything to come back. However, if it hasn't been that great and we can offer them something locally, we're hoping out of that group of 40 to 50 families that we can get 20 out of them. Because those are currently FTEs that we're losing, so it'd be on top of the kids that we currently serve. We're easily gonna have 20 already, like internal type of students. Sebastian's shaking his head. You probably can think of friends and people that might actually prefer this. I don't think once it goes public, that's gonna be a problem.
Okay. If you needed 20 and you had 19, would you open it up to somebody from outside?
I think our commitment so far is to stay internal. That's a Pete question.
Yeah, I don't think that, we're not too nervous about the number 20 based on the data that we have around families that are choosing this model. And the other, I think, sort of philosophical component about opening it up to kids from the outside, it's one of the reasons why we did it. We think we can do it better here by being able to, I see it more as a blended opportunity. You're gonna do most of your work online. Maybe once in a while you're gonna check in on a Zoom, but there might also be a night where you and your parents can come in and check in with the teacher, or you can come in and get some extra support, like an opportunity just to check and connect with someone, either a counselor or a certified instructor. So we have the job posted. We're looking to hire someone, and we're really confident that we're going to get 20 of our own kids. We certainly think we can do that.
Also, they're more likely to participate in sports if they're not leaving town, or clubs, or even come and do electives at the high school or whatever if they choose to.
The reason question being for me was the Moses Lake kids wanting to maybe be able to do sports, but not want to have to come to school here, and that was where that question was coming from. So,
I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
So, with these extenuating circumstances, who in the district makes that determination on whether or not that qualifies?
So we have preliminary set up a team. Let's see, principals, secondary principals, counselors, the teaching and learning team, and then the executive board have all been involved in creating this. So at any given time, we'll pull 4 or 5 of those people and start screening for these type of things. Right. But we'll also want to hear, the counselor, the meetings. Or I hope there's meetings that we can problem solve those things so they can stay at the high school or whatever first. And then when we hear like, no, this is just a really good fit, then we'll go this route.
And there are already protocols and practices in place. So this August, when we have registration at the high school, you might have a student who their family just moved to the community, and maybe they're leaving a difficult circumstance in another school district, and they think they're just going to enroll at Othello High School. They're going to have an interview. They're going to go through a screening process, and then we're going to decide what's the best fit for them. That typically happens at the administrative level at the school. But if that family didn't agree with that assessment, then they could appeal it to the district office and, maybe eventually to the board. But yeah, there's a structure in place already for how that happens.
You also mentioned that you kind of felt like the people who had been in programs for a while are less likely to. So if a family has like older kids that have been in it for a while, but the younger kids are just starting, could some of them do it and some of them not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. We hope they do.
And then you made it sound like every year we're reevaluating in general?
We have this platform called a choice transfer portal. And so families that are trying to come in or go out have this application that's consistent around the state. And probably every school district has a little bit different criteria. But we've started to monitor that really closely this year and have a much better handle on the reasons why kids are going in and out. Yeah.
So it'd be normal for them to say, you know, this coming school year, it's gonna be really hard, so I'm gonna do the online program this year, but next year, maybe we'll come back to school. That's kind of what we're looking for?
I think so.
Okay.
That's how we're sort of seeing it. I did include a question in here, number 8, because I've already had this question. If they do choose to stay on this program, can they graduate and, you know, never have stepped foot in the high school or whatever? And I think that Pete mentioned the word hybrid. I think there's some requirements outside of just courses in order to graduate, like your pathway, the high school and beyond plan, and those things are going to take one-on-one instruction. Possibly the CTE pathway is a course taking pattern that they have to do. So I see those meetings happening with the instructor. There's going to be oversight with the principal and a counselor as well that will sit down on a really individual basis and say, what are you looking for post-secondary? How can we get you into CDL? But this is the bulk of your core classes or whatever. So I think we're willing to be flexible until we're not, because it's crazy. I don't know. We'll see.
Pete, I have a question. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, so what you just said, it's not designed for a student to graduate never having set foot here. If they work closely with the counselors, they can figure out what they need to come here for, what they need to
And
have.
maybe it's just a few electives.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, and then last question, the curriculum, does this line up with the classes here?
No, so you've probably heard of Odysseyware. If you have, that's been our credit retrieval, an online program where you kind of cherry pick the courses. I've failed Algebra 2 in person twice. Now I'm going to take it on Odysseyware at my own pace with Mr. Parrish's help, type of a thing. That's been a great program for us, but that same company that owns that program is called Imagine Learning, and they have another program called Edgenuity that is much more like our kids who are in college on a Canvas type of a class, all-encompassing program-wide courses. So we're actually trimming down our Odysseyware options and purchasing this program to come out with pretty much the same investment financially, but being able to offer this as kind of a separate thing. So it's not, oh, I know about Odysseyware, you know. New start, kind of a new brand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Pete, I had a question. You said you guys haven't hired an instructor for this yet?
Correct, the job's been posted.
Second of all, who's going to be overseeing that? Is that going to be Kat at the high school? Is that going to be, you know, who is going to
Yeah,
oversee
so
that?
we have some options for housing. I know that we had conversations earlier in the year that there was some flex space over at McFarland. So it's thinking about what facility makes the most sense. Are we going to design a model that allows families to come in periodically? Are they just going to need an office, or would they need a classroom? So part of it's going to depend on where we house it, but it would be anywhere from middle to high school.
Okay.
But we have already talked about, like, if you're a junior, clearly you're going to need a high school counselor on your team. Possibly a principal will be aware. So I think we've chosen 712, and so we have specialists at all those levels that will be able to contribute to a student's plan.
So let's just say we get all 50 students, let's just say. Would one instructor still be enough for that, or how do you see that?
So OSPI puts out lots of recommendations for, especially post-COVID. Lots of places are doing this, and it's somewhere between like 60 and 75 students that they say one teacher can easily monitor and keep track of. We've talked about, if the need grows, adding paras to the situation and maybe teachers if needed. But then I think we would also reevaluate our criteria and see, whoa, okay, if it becomes too big, then it's probably a tier 1 problem, right? Like it's our...
Well, it just seems to be a lot of students for when, I mean, we ask a teacher to take care of 20
Oh,
bodies
yeah.
in a classroom. Now, all of a sudden, online, you're asking them to do 60.
So if it
It's a lot of
gives you any comparisons, Scott Parrish, I mentioned him once, he has maybe for 10 years or so monitored the Odysseyware classes, and at any given time there could be up to 70 or 80 juniors and seniors working on an Odysseyware class, and he can monitor that fairly easily. You know, it's grading here and grading there. You do a couple open office hours a week so kids can come in, but it's not, it sounds like a lot more than in the trenches it actually is.
There's some teachers out there that have had trouble putting grades in at times or
Yeah.
getting things, so I just didn't want to have
Right,
one administrator or one
teacher.
instructor
Yeah.
get overwhelmed.
One of the benefits of this Edgenuity program is it's pretty, it's very self-sufficient, not for the grading. We need an instructor to be able to do that, but it's the tracking and, you know, you mentioned grades, all of those things. We'll have to figure out the system to go from there to our reporting system, to Skyward. But I think we'll be able to put things in place that make it fairly doable. And if you think it's a full-time staff member all day on site, they'll have a lot of time.
Does the money follows the kid? Is that right? Yeah,
Correct.
the state money. So if you said there's some like local kids, but they're taking other classes, other schools, right? So
Mhm.
that means they get the. That's
Yep.
how. Okay. So the idea would be to get them here, so then we get the funding.
That was the whole reason of asking them, you know, if you open it to the outside, then.
Then we get more money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be clarity on that. And then you, the one comment, students understand that if this program's unsuccessful, they'll be placed back in on-site classes, right?
That's
So if they're failing on they have to go back to school?
absolutely, or you know, back to the table and brainstorm what is it that's missing, what's causing the failure or whatever. And we put that in there so that people didn't just think, oh, I'm doing this all year no matter what, but
Right.
months go by and they haven't done anything or checked in. We'll still have oversight, just like we do now. Like, we know your story. Maybe your placement's better at Othello High School, maybe it's better at Desert Oasis. Same sort of thinking.
So if they don't pass, they could be, as a freshman, they could the next year still be a freshman then, right?
Sure, because
Okay.
you know, that just is based on your credits. You might think you're in 10th grade, but you have a handful of credits, so you're still taking 9th grade classes or whatever. And this will also have the potential for students to move faster than our typical traditional model if that's their choice. So we'll have those questions later on. Can they graduate when they're 16, Pete?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think, you know, when we think about sort of this new environment of public ed, this isn't our preferred model. You know, we want kids in classrooms interacting with teachers, interacting with one another. You think about a scenario where as a 7th grader, so you'd be 12 or 13, and you jump into online learning in the Othello School District, and you do well through 8th grade, and then you ride it out through 10th grade, and then you do Big Bend Running Start online, and now you're 16 and you are 18 and you go to WSU online. You know, you could have marched through 7 or 8 years and never been in a classroom, and then maybe you become a remote employee, right? You spend your whole life on a screen, and I think there are a small number of us who would thrive in that environment, but that's not our preferred model. But if it can be a support to families who live and work here locally that are going elsewhere with our people, we think it's worth it. If it pays for itself because we brought some of those families back, it's definitely worth it. So it's an exciting project. I know Dr. Meek's been helpful in helping design it. Amy certainly has been at the front of it. And as they described it to me over the last several months, I'm like, yeah, this is a good option for some of our families and kids for sure. But what you just described, Chris, if I'm at WAVA online and someone on the other side of the state is monitoring my progress and I don't show up, I might just lose access, or I'm never going to be in a room with them. Our model is designed that, hey, if you haven't logged in for a few weeks, maybe a home visitor, maybe a counselor, someone's knocking on your door saying, hey, you got to keep going. You got to take these classes. So we think it's a much better option.
That reminds me of one more little thing I wanted to add. It's not in here anywhere, but part of their team is going to include the CBHA school liaison position. So in the partnership that we have with them, they hired this last school year a school liaison to kind of coordinate all the things we do with them. But that person's going to sit in, and if they hear services, wraparound services that CBHA can help them connect with, we think that's just a win. That'll be a cool opportunity dig out more and find those barriers that are helping, make them successful.
No, good. I like the idea of no kid getting left behind, that you're knocking on doors, because there is yeah, I understand COVID and some of the kids, because I had a neighbor that, yeah, he just went ahead and just graduated and did fine, but there's that social
Yeah.
interaction that in the real world they're gonna need.
Right,
And,
exactly.
And, yeah, so it'd be nice to get them into a public environment, a setting, classroom setting, but there are those brainiacs I could see that are bored, so they're gonna
Yeah.
be, so why not, if they can excel?
And if
and
their
do what you were
parents
saying,
support
Pia.
it and they have all these things, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just wanted to also say your CDL class, I see those guys driving by the house all the times.
Yes, I do too. I see them ride my farm all the time, and that's awesome.
Just kudos.
I do. Oh,
Just wanted to say thank you for that. That's awesome.
I'd just like to say that I'm thoroughly impressed with our district and what they're able to do. You hear around the state now that a lot of districts are dropping different courses and different things, but we're able to continue to add services for our students and what we think is the best for our students too. I'm really thoroughly impressed with our administration staff and everybody that makes this all happen. Thank you. Any more on the superintendent information?
No, that was the final item. Thank you, Ken.
Okay. So we got some policy review. We got a couple policies there to review before the next meeting. Is there any public comment at this time?
No public comment.
Okay, upcoming events. Next board meeting, August 12th. And we have a special one again. And notice that these times go back to the evening.
I was gonna sit there and say, if school's not back on, could we make that one noon or 1 o'clock like we did today?
For the August 12th one in the summertime, so that one you're talking about?
Yeah, the August 12th, the regular board meeting and then the budget presentation.
Yeah, it's up to the board. We're able to support that for sure.
1 o'clock and the 2 o'clock?
I like that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. It just,
yeah. I believe I can make that one.
I understand. I just want to want to give everybody a chance to be able to make it to these board meetings if they'd like. But I also would like to be able to now be able to do it in the middle of the day, and then when school starts, go back to our afternoons.
Okay. So we will do that then. We'll have our
Yeah,
1 o'clock.
we'll make that adjustment.
Special board meeting budget hearing, August 22nd. And it's getting that time again, new teacher orientation on the 26th. And then regular board meeting on the 26th. And then August 29th, first day of school.
Sorry, Pete. I had a question for Pete. Pete, that new teacher orientation, is that the one that you have right before the school starts with all the teachers from all the schools?
No, that one was on a previous agenda, and I've sent out a survey to our building principals about whether or not we're going to continue with that event. Last year was the first year we did 2 separate events, a secondary and an elementary. And so we're talking a little bit about whether or not that would just happen at the school sites themselves. And I was going to speak with the board in our individual sessions about your interest in, remember the sort of go cook lunch, go cook breakfast activity we did?
Yes.
We might set up a similar structure where we visit each school that day and get 10 or 15 minutes with them to share a message and to welcome them back and perhaps share a meal. So I think that's the model we're going to go with. I'm waiting to hear back from a couple more principals, but I can give an update about that at the next board meeting.
I personally would like to, because I'd like to be there, to welcome all the new teachers and
The-
the whole staff back and everything else, so.
The new teacher one, that's a breakfast event where we all gather up at, typically we've done it at the corridor at the high school. So this year it'll be here. We have a smaller group, so it'll be here. But it gives you a chance to meet the new teachers and for them to meet you. So that one's definitely going to happen. But we'll give you some more details on the orientation day schedule.
I had a question. Do all the other events besides the regular board meeting require the attendance of the student representatives?
You're welcome at any and all of those events, Sebastian.
All right, I'll
Yeah,
be
so
there.
just let Mrs. Garza know.
Okay, any other items to add to that?
Just a reminder about the meeting with the state reps on the 30th of this month.
30th, yes. Okay. Then we'll go on to the board self-assessment of the meeting.
Glad to have a student rep back here, back at our meeting.
Have Sebastian back. Looking forward to the community night.
Good information on additional learning or pathways for our students for education.
Yeah, thank you on the clarity on the digital learning, so that was, I heard about it, so it was good to know more about it. Thank you.
Pete, this is the wrong time. We should have been on board discussion, but I'd like to thank you. We got to meet with Mike Dahm, the new AD. Very excited. Got to sit down with him and yeah, it's, he's got some great ideas. Really looking forward to him implementing his thoughts and ideas and looking forward to it a lot.
As far as what to change in future meetings, I think next meeting we'll all be here, right? Yeah,
Yes.
so that'll be nice.
Any other items to add to that?
I'd just like to thank everybody that came to the meeting. I know it's summertime. You guys all would like to be with family, friends, or anything but here. So I greatly appreciate you guys coming out and being here with us today.
Maybe they're just trying to escape the heat. And they know that Pete has the AC on in here, so.
You gotta love Pete for that.
Okay, if there's no more to add to that list, then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.